Welcome to another episode of Twice Told Tales podcast. Today we're going to take a brief look at some of the top headlines both in Iran and in the U.S. So, Chris, can you start by one of the?
Well, I think the one that everyone's talking about is this Trump arrest, and I think it's like anyone who's watched the news carefully in the U.S. from a attempt to be unbiased can see that this is a very political act. I mean, the charges are absurd. Everyone knew he was a womanizer, and this is the allegations or the what he's been charged with are just it's like 38 charges or something like that. It's just an absurd thing that an ordinary person, this would be something they'd get out with a fine because they just mislabeled something on an accountant record. It wasn't trying to defraud anyone. At most, it was just trying to protect, it was a lawyer trying to protect his client. And I don't know. The hysteria is because liberal brains have been brain damaged since 2015 about trying to associate evil with Trump vicariously via Putin, which they claim is evil. And so the liberals are obsessed with this Russiagate narrative, and anytime Trump is mentioned, it's like a love-hate thing. Like their whole political lives revolve around hating Trump. So they've been like a heroin addict who hasn't had their heroin for months and months because Trump has been out of the news. It's just been Biden, and so bringing Trump back is just like, it's just elating, especially getting arrested, just elating all these liberals. And so they're distracted fully with this circus, and they're not focusing on the important things that are happening right now, like the Restrict Act, which is going to take away basically all of our rights online to do anything that's counter U.S. government desires. It's a really horrific act that's bipartisan supported. So there are all sorts of things happening in the background that is meant to distract liberals from it. At the same time, Trump's base really loves it because he's painted as a victim, and so it's a win-win for both the liberals and the Trump supporters. It's a lose for those of us who don't fall in line with either of those psyops. But yeah, so I would say it's a lot of hysteria. Just like everything else that goes on, there's not much to it. Just something to agitate people, and yeah, I don't know. It's not much more to say. It's just I wouldn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, it looks like a perfect scenario for Trump to play innocent and victim and even gain more support for the next elections. Does it sound like could be the case?
For both of their parties, it's an election. It's a divisive tactic that benefits both parties. So I think Trump's definitely playing along with it, and as much as I think everyone in his team knows that this benefits him because it paints him as a victim of the liberals or the deep state or whatever. So the people who support him grow closer, and there's people who don't want the U.S. to fall into I think the charges are ridiculous. I think the whole thing should be thrown out because not because I don't like Trump, but I just don't like the idea of an opposition candidate being burdened with legal issues or threatened with arrest or being arrested by the dominant party before an election. I mean, that's what happened in Brazil a few years ago. That with Lula, that was like what they did to him. It's like when your party is the dominant ruling party and you control the judiciary, you can then harass and cause problems outside of the electoral process by just like targeting your opponents with phony lawsuits, and you can get them thrown in prison, and then they can't threaten you in the election. And that's, most banana republics do that as a way of maintaining a sort of illegitimate grip on power that's not democratic. And I mean, nobody who watches things actually believes America's a democracy, but the lie that we're a democracy is much harder to tell when you have opposition candidates being treated like this. So, people who are accelerationists who want to see the system burn faster, this is actually probably a good thing, because more Americans are waking up to the fact that we do live in a banana republic. But it is still it's destabilizing, and already the U.S. is approaching very critical instabilities that we've never seen before with the currency and with geopolitics. So it's another aspect of a real decline in U.S. security and stability.
You also mentioned the act that you think is targeting freedom of speech online. Can you tell us more about that? Because I think I read somewhere that, as a part of the same act, that if people use VPNs in the US, they could be sent to prison for 20 years or something.
20 years or $1 million fine or both. It's a very vaguely worded bill. They call it the TikTok ban bill because they know that right-wingers will support it, because right-wingers think TikTok is the evil Chinese brainwashing tool, which it may be, but it's politically called that, even though the bill itself doesn't mention TikTok in it at all. It's just a way of garnering bipartisan support for a bill to remove the freedoms of Americans, more freedoms of Americans online. So, anything that is deemed by the U.S. anti-American, anything that's deemed as an American adversary state, they can do that without telling you. And also the bill is exempt from Freedom of Information Act requests, so nobody can know what they're doing. So in the complete dark, they're able to come up with the rules, come up with how you violated the rules, and then they can take all of your property, including your home and your car or your computer. They can take anything you own and remove it from your possession indefinitely. They can put you in prison for 20 years. They can charge you $1 million, all with rules that they write up saying how you violated them online as part of supporting a foreign government. So, they could figure out ways of probably saying the podcast we have is in violation of something because Iran is an enemy state. So, the
adversaries mentioned in that act are Iran, North Korea, Russia, and China and Cuba, I guess. So anything that has to do with these countries. Yeah, and it's really crazy how, imagine Iran had, the Iranian parliament was trying to pass a similar law, like the way you would make headlines across the world.
Even if it didn't make headlines, sure I don't think Iranian people would be flying flags that say freedom on it, because they would know that they're not free. But Americans are so stupid that they'll support this act, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we know about freedom." Not really. So America. That's the sad thing is America. Like, there are a few people out there who are trying to change things and understand what's going on, but the vast majority of people in America are just totally under the spell. So So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's passed with flying colors, because we don't want TikTok programming our kids, even though the bill's not about TikTok or any of that. So people will still support it because the media says it's one thing when in fact it's actually something much more nefarious. But we saw that with the Patriot Act. The only difference is the Patriot Act was passed after a very traumatizing event. So people were really had in a vulnerable state. Now I think generally there hasn't been a specific traumatizing event, but because of the way social media has now brainwashed everyone, and we've had COVID was traumatizing, but we have these psyops that just repeated trauma to people's brains, like that. You had COVID, you have Ukraine, you have all the trans stuff. Everything is just piles on to people, and just I think people's brains are just in a constant state of mush, like I experienced after 9/11, where they're just completely malleable. So, and they're not thinking rationally as a mass of people. So there's political organizing, and doing anything seems impossible. I think that's what they're
Right.
they're factoring in with this bill, and they know once they pass it, there'll be no resistance to it, and then they can just secretly just start removing people from the internet that they don't like. That would be really beneficial to them.
Yeah. I mean, they're already controlling the algorithm. They were already taking down people who have non-mainstream ideas, but that's just another act to make it almost impossible for people to speak freely on the internet.
Yeah, it seems like that.
So yeah, so moving to the headlines or the news in Iran, there was a headline that I saw both inside and outside Iran. Like news outlets were covering that, especially Israeli news outlets, that there was another drone attack on a military facility in Isfahan, where I live, and the Iranian defense system unfolded that. And obviously, they're suspecting that this was another Israeli attack like the one that happened in January, and like people were arrested with regards to that attack, and gradually we began to know some details about the other one. But this one, after there were headlines that the defense ministry unfolded a drone attack on the military facility, the interior minister, General Bahidi, said that they are still investigating the case, and they haven't confirmed that it actually happened, or who was behind it, or if it was a drone attack.
Is there any information on the drone
trying
itself?
to infiltrate.
Is this a little quadcopter,
There's nothing
or is this
yet.
like a drone with a jet engine, or how big was the one they shot down before?
It's a small one. Like it was a small one that is like a quadrocopter that is controlled from somewhere nearby.
Okay, so
No.
it would have been an MEK operative who was doing it on behalf of Israel.
Yeah, either MEK or just some other people who were paid inside Iran, and that they are the ones who have been arrested and are under investigation to see who they're connected to and stuff. But with the recent one that happened just yesterday, and the headlines appeared this morning, they're still investigating the case, so we still don't know if it was like what type of drone it was and what exactly happened and who was behind it. We don't know the details yet. And so the other important news regarding Iran was a UN resolution that was passed against Iran on the situation of human rights in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the draft resolution was submitted by, it's interesting to mention the countries, submitted by Iceland, North Macedonia, Republic of Moldova, United Kingdom, and Northern Ireland. I don't really know what's... it's interesting. What do Iceland and Macedonia and Moldova have to do with it? But anyways, so, and 23 countries voted yes. We had 8 countries that voted no, and 16
We're the ones who
abstentions,
voted
and
no. No ones are the important ones.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They are the friends of not only the friends of Iran, but the friends of truth. I'm going to talk about why I say that. But so Bangladesh, Bolivia, China, Cuba, Eritrea, Kazakhstan,
Interesting.
Vietnam, and Pakistan voted no. Yeah,
How did
that's
Russia
interesting.
vote? Russia and India.
They were not present apparently because I can't see. Like, so I was looking also for Saudi Arabia and I didn't see their names there, but UAE abstained.
Yeah, they
probably
because like so that they
yeah,
would have.
Of course.
I mean, yeah, if they don't go to a vote like that,
but
that means they don't really care.
That's true.
They're not really going yes, but they also don't want to go no hardcore. So.
Exactly. Yeah, I was very disappointed by Mexico because they voted yes. Malaysia
all the Latin
abstained
American
from voting.
except Bolivia.
Well,
like
yeah, but let's see how many. Well, I mean, Argentina voted yes. But I mean,
Brazil.
Yeah. Do we have Brazil? No.
It really stems from the Vatican, from the influence of the Catholic Church, I'm sure. Like, there's just so much anti-Iran because it's just they just fall right into the Zionist narrative. There's a lot of
aren't
Catholic,
but Bolivians also consider themselves kind of Catholic, right?
They're more like indigenous. They're very, especially the government right now views itself as like an indigenous government because they had that coup against this, or the U.S. had that coup against their indigenous leadership, which was brought in by these crazy right wingers, and then they took it back, as far as I understand. So, like, they consider themselves like, if it is Catholic, it's a very indigenous interpretation of Catholicism. I mean, there's obviously a white settler class that exists there, but I think the government currently is aligned with the masses of indigenous people who don't.
But what about Mexico?
Mexico is.
I mean, that's why
the longest held Catholic territory, and I think.
No, but I mean, in terms of their, you know, that's why I mean, with the current presidents of like Mexico, I was expecting at least abstention.
Yeah, I'm sure there was debate.
Yes,
I'm sure there was like AMLO is like speaks very. I posted a video. Was it? Did I post it on our Telegram? I think I sent it to you, where he was talking about very eloquently about resisting U.S. imperialism, and I think that's
why I'm surprised and disappointed.
The war on terror, Islamophobia, definitely harmed, or didn't. It affected Latin America more than it should have. And so I think there's a lot of Catholics who believe that Islam is evil and it's the enemy. And so I think that.
Well, I wouldn't see it. I don't know. I wouldn't see it as having to do with Catholicism, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's because of the anti-imperialist positions that the president of Mexico had that I was like surprised that they would vote. But I mean, at the same time, I understand because Iran is, you know, it's very difficult to get genuine news from Iran, and it's very easy for people to fall for the mainstream narratives that exist on Iran. And like we also talked about it in our article for the Gray Zone, the special rapporteur on the situation of on the status of human rights in Iran, Javed Rahman, he lied about Iran. I mean, it's one thing to not to know what is happening, but it's another thing that you lie about something that is happening inside Iran, something that you could have checked online. He claimed that Kurdish names are forbidden in Iran in an interview. And a lot of the like the discourse on the protests that we had in September were surrounding they were trying to exploit this ethnicity, like to portray it as something about ethnicity, or that the Iranian government is against Kurdish people, and all those all sort of those things. And I mean, he could have searched online. I mean, did he not have access to people who could tell him? I mean, it was a very basic search that we did, and the Iran's directory of names, like the names registry, you can just search different Kurdish names. Even the name Jina, which is Mahsa Amini's Kurdish name, appeared more than 5,000 times on that website. So this is how they are reporting on the situation of human rights in Iran. And it's very sad to see that there are a lot of people and a lot of even so-called or anti-imperialist people falling for that because they don't really understand what's happening inside Iran.
Yeah, it is really it's really amazing that there would be anyone who'd even tolerate emotion like that, while we can see what clearly is going on in Ukraine and other parts of the world. That it's just, I mean, Israel and Palestine. And then we're going to say that Iran is the one with the human rights issue because they have a law that they don't really enforce about women's hats. That's really the worst thing in the world right now is women's hats. Like, I mean, I think we could just look over at Israel. They're like just slaughtering people. They won't let people worship. They're desecrating the Al-Aqsa Mosque with like sacrifices of lambs and whatever. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't know. It just seems like Israel has totally lost it and is just brutalizing people. They arrested 300 people who just wanted to worship or protect their site of worship, which is sacred to like 1 billion people on Earth. And then and we're gonna look at Iran because there's a law about women wearing hats. I don't know. It's insane. The world is insane. So it's a shame that the UN doesn't have better priorities right now, especially with Ukraine, which is just a total meat grinder. That doesn't need to be. It's obviously it's being spurred on by the West. And they didn't allow Russia to. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it was probably around November or around that time, if I'm not mistaken, that the UN called for investigation into women's rights and human rights in Iran. And at that time, when there was still not a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Saudi Arabia voted against Iran's situation of women's rights.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's just so ridiculous.
Women's rights, exactly.
Yeah, and Iran was
in Saudi Arabia because their womb might be affected.
I mean, now probably they can, but they couldn't even go to cinemas or drive for a very long time, and nobody talked about that because
they still have guardians.
That was a U.S. ally.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah, well, it's all because of money. It's all fake. But I was gonna say with the UN, they just now blocked. They were having a UN webcast or something about the situation of children in Donbass, and the UK denied the Russians the ability to show a documentary about children in Donbass to try to dispel these stupid allegations of children concentration camps or whatever that CNN's trying to push, and saying that Putin is guilty. They're trying to back up this totally fabricated ICC claim that Putin's guilty of like child abduction, which is, I mean, if you just go to the Gray Zone and watch Jeremy Lafredo's report on these quote unquote concentration camps, then you'll wish your kids could go to them too, because it's just like it's just like kids getting taught music for 2 weeks so that they can escape the war zone by some of the best, music teachers in Russia, trying to provide the kids a bit of relief from a horrible situation. And I think it's fantastic. So, I mean, the fact that they think that it's possible to twist the narrative so much that they can put like a music education camp to help traumatize children, they can spin that into a war crime. They know it's so phony that that's why they had to block any kind of information coming out of Russia, because the minute you see it, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, and so they have to have this whole boogeyman of like Putin being this Hitler-esque like demon trying to cook children in a pot or something. It's just crazy, but it works. People here are very stupid, so it works on them, and they'll just believe whatever. I mean, it's just unbelievable how people are so easily manipulated by these ghoulish media outlets. But that's why we'll probably stumble into World War III in a very dramatic way at some point or another. So that's what I think.
Yep. So yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think we can wrap it up here. So if you have,
so that's a good place to leave it, with the inevitability of World War III. We're in it already. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are already there. Yes. So if you stayed, I mean, you kept listening to us up to this minute, which is still less than half an hour. We wish to hear your feedback. If you think this is a good idea to cover the headlines in Iran and in the U.S., what's some basic analysis of what is happening, let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, share this video, and you can also support us through Patreon. And we will make sure to have the link in the caption of this video, but you can also visit our channel's page and support us. So, Chris, do you have anything to add?
That's it. See you next time. Bye.